He thought he was just helping a struggling mother and her kids by taking them to a cheap diner. But what happened next turned his entire world upside down. Because the woman he believed was homeless owned the very chain he took her to. And that was just the beginning. What she did afterward left him speechless and changed his life forever. This is not just a story about kindness. It is about secrets, second chances, and the shocking truth behind a simple act of generosity. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you will never look at a stranger the same way again. Rain tapped softly on the windshield. The wipers swept back and forth with a tired rhythm. Jake, a single father in his late 30s, adjusted the rearview mirror and glanced at his daughter in the back seat. 8-year-old Lily clutched a stuffed bear, yawning quietly. It was Friday night. They were supposed to go home. But then he saw her. A woman crouched beneath the awning of a bus stop. Soaked. 2 kids huddled beside her, thin jackets clinging to their bodies. Jake slowed the car. He looked again. The woman glanced up, eyes tired, hair damp, her face both familiar and distant. He rolled down his window. "Do you need a ride somewhere?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "Just somewhere warm," she replied. Jake unlocked the doors. They climbed in. The kids looked no older than 5 or 6. Cold, silent, and wide-eyed. The heater hummed. Jake drove slowly through the dark. "I'm Jake," he said. "Angela," she replied. "These are my sons Leo and Max." Jake looked at Lily through the rearview. She was already smiling at the boys. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Angela opened her mouth, paused, and then nodded faintly. Jake made a left. Down a quiet street lined with flickering signs. There it was. A small beat-up diner called Marty's Grill. Nothing fancy, but clean and warm. The bell above the door jingled. A tired waitress looked up from her notepad. "Anywhere you like," she said. They sat in a booth near the back. Cracked vinyl seats. Sticky menus. But the smell of sizzling bacon and fresh fries filled the air. Angela kept glancing around. Jake noticed. "Been here before?" he asked. She nodded slowly. Her eyes wandered to a photograph on the wall. An old picture of the original Marty. The kids ate quietly. Leo kept sneaking fries from Max's plate. Angela barely touched her food. Jake noticed her eyes welling up as she sipped coffee. "You all right?" he asked gently. She wiped her cheek quickly. "Yes. It's just been a long week." Jake offered a half smile. "I get it. Being a parent, it is not easy." Angela nodded, more to herself than to him. As the meal ended, Jake pulled out his wallet. "I got this," he said. Angela shook her head. "No. Please." "It's okay," he interrupted. "I wanted to help. You do not owe me anything." She looked at him, really looked, and then something in her shifted. "Actually," she said, "there is something I need to tell you." Jake raised an eyebrow. Angela stood slowly, walked to the waitress. She whispered something. The waitress's eyes widened. She disappeared into the kitchen. Moments later, the kitchen door swung open. A man in an apron stepped out. Tall, gray-bearded, eyes sharp with recognition. "Miss Angela?" he said. "What are you doing here?" Jake blinked. He looked between the man and Angela. Angela smiled faintly. "I was just checking in." The man rushed over. "I thought you were still in New York. You did not say you were visiting." Angela nodded toward Jake. "I met someone honest tonight." Jake was frozen. Angela turned to him. "I own this place," she said softly. "All of them." Jake blinked. "All of what?" "This diner chain. Marty's Grill. Every location." His jaw tightened. You own this place?" She nodded. Her kids now smiling beside her. "I started it 10 years ago. After my husband passed, I worked double shifts, cleaned kitchens, learned every part of the business. I expanded, brick by brick. And now I have 16 of these across the state." Jake stared at the cracked vinyl seats, the flickering neon sign outside. He had brought her here to help her. And she had let him. "Why not say anything?" he asked, voice low. Angela smiled gently. "Because I wanted to see who you were. And you showed me." Jake looked down at the receipt. The total was already paid. Stamped in red ink at the bottom. Comped, owner authorized. He looked back up. Angela was already helping Leo with his coat. She walked over. Handed him a business card. "I do not usually do this. But I am short a regional manager. Thought you might be good at something bigger." Jake looked at the card. Angela Langston. Founder and CEO. He opened his mouth to speak, but her hand was already gently pushing it closed. "Let it be my turn," she whispered. The bell jingled again as they left. Jake stood there, still holding the card, still trying to process the truth. The poor mother he had tried to help was the quiet owner of it all. Jake stepped out into the night air. The rain had softened into a mist, casting a faint glow under the streetlights. He stared at the business card in his hand. It felt heavier than paper, like it carried a new direction, a different future. Lily tugged on his coat. "Daddy, are we going to work at that place now?" Jake crouched down beside her. "I do not know, sweetheart. Maybe. Do you think I should?" Lily grinned. "She likes you. And she owns all the fries." Jake laughed quietly, the kind of laugh that released something tight in his chest. He had not felt this light in years. His last job had downsized. Bills had piled up. He had taken freelance gigs, delivery routes, anything to keep food on the table. But now a door had opened. And not just any door. One he had never even seen coming. Angela and her boys were getting into a sleek black SUV. Not brand new but clean, polished. It hummed with quiet power. Jake watched as she helped Max into the back seat, then turned to meet his eyes again. She did not wave. She nodded. A slow, knowing nod that said, "I meant what I said." Then the SUV pulled away. Jake stood there for a long moment. The lights of Marty's grill buzzed overhead. Inside, the waitress cleaned their booth, still glancing at him now and then, still wide-eyed. He slid back into the car. Buckle clicked. Engine started. But something had shifted. The wheel felt different in his hands. Not because the car had changed, but because he had. The next morning, Jake stood in front of a large 2-story building with glass doors and the words Marty's corporate headquarters etched in steel above them. He had dressed carefully. The nicest button-up he owned. Polished his shoes. Shaved. Lily had drawn a small smiley face on a sticky note and tucked it into his pocket. "For luck," she had whispered. He clutched it now, fingers brushing the soft paper. A young man looked up. "May I help you?" Jake handed him the card. The man read it, eyebrows rising. "One moment, please." He disappeared behind a frosted glass door. Seconds ticked by. Jake's heart thudded. He thought about turning around. About backing away. About whether this was some kind of joke, a fluke, a test. But then the door opened. Angela stood there. No suit. No jewelry. Just a soft gray blouse and calm confidence. "I was hoping you would come," she said. Jake stepped forward slowly. "This is real." She nodded. "I do not offer people jobs. I invite partners." Jake blinked. "I do not know anything about running a business." Angela raised an eyebrow. "You knew how to show kindness to a stranger. You knew how to lead by example even with nothing. You put your child first. You gave without expecting. That is exactly the kind of person I want leading my teams." He looked at her, unsure. "Why me?" Angela's eyes softened. "Because I used to be you. And someone took a chance on me." She gestured toward a hallway. "Let me show you the office. You can decide from there." Jake hesitated, then stepped forward. The hallway smelled of fresh paint and coffee. Photographs lined the wall, snapshots of grand openings, employees laughing, holiday parties, a community built from scratch. One photo stopped him cold. It was Angela, younger, wearing a diner uniform, holding a spatula and smiling behind a cluttered grill. She caught his glance. "That was the first Marty's," she said. "Before it was mine. Before anyone believed in me." Jake nodded. Something settled inside him. This was not just about a job. It was about rebuilding. Becoming. Angela opened a door at the end of the hall. A desk. A window. A simple nameplate waiting to be filled. Jake stepped inside. Ran his fingers over the smooth wood. Sat in the chair. "Fit." Angela handed him a small folder. "Take your time. Read it over. But if you are in, we start Monday." She paused. "And one more thing." Jake looked up. "You are not alone anymore." Then she walked out, leaving him in silence. A silence filled not with fear, but with something new. Hope. Monday morning came with sharp sunlight and cooler air. Jake stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie for the third time. Lily peeked into the doorway, swinging her backpack with excitement. "Are you nervous?" Jake smiled at her reflection. "A little. New beginnings usually are." She stepped closer and handed him a small folded note. "For your drawer. You will know when to open it." Jake nodded, tucked it into his inner jacket pocket, kissed her forehead and walked out. The headquarters of Marty's Grill was already buzzing when Jake arrived. Receptionists answered phones. Delivery men wheeled in supplies. Team leads walked by in smart casuals, coffee cups in hand. Angela was not at the front desk this time. But a woman with red glasses met him at the elevator. "Mr. Daniels? Welcome. I am Jenna. I will show you your floor." The ride up was smooth, silent, almost surreal. Jake tried to calm the buzz in his chest. When the elevator doors opened, a wave of cinnamon and fresh bread filled the air. It was the test kitchen level. Jenna smiled. "You will spend your first week here. We want you to understand the brand from the inside out." Jake followed her past gleaming ovens, polished prep counters, and a boardroom with windows opening onto a rooftop garden. Then he saw him. A man in his early 40s, well-built, arms crossed, face unreadable. Chef Bruno. Head of culinary operations. Angela had mentioned him. Old school. No nonsense. Not impressed easily. Bruno looked Jake over slowly. "So, you are the single dad who walked the CEO into one of her own diners?" Jake chuckled, unsure if it was a joke. "I guess that is me." Bruno stepped forward, tossed him a white apron. "Then prove you belong here. Fry station. Now." Jake blinked. "I am supposed to be shadowing?" Bruno pointed to the line. "You want to lead a team here? Earn it. Show me your hands can move as well as your mouth." Jake moved without argument. His first few minutes were chaos. Orders rang out. Sizzling oil popped. The fryer hissed and steamed. He burned his wrist. Dropped a basket of onion rings. Nearly overcooked a batch of fries. But he did not walk away. He stayed. He learned the rhythm. Watched how the chefs timed their turns, how they handed off plates with just a glance. He adjusted. Quickened. Focused. By noon, Bruno said nothing. But Jake noticed he had stopped watching every move. That afternoon, Angela visited. She wore flats and a navy blazer, her hair tied back. She leaned over the prep counter. "So?" Jake wiped sweat from his brow. "I made it through lunch rush." She grinned. "Most corporate managers would have quit by now." He looked her in the eye. "I have had harder days. And I want to understand the people. I cannot lead anyone if I do not respect where they stand." Angela studied him a moment. Then nodded slowly. "I made the right choice." But it was not all progress. The next day brought tension. A staff meeting. Jake sat among experienced managers. Angela introduced him. "This is Jake Daniels, our new regional development leader. He will be involved in community initiatives and leadership restructuring." Murmurs rippled. One man, Philip, a 30-year company veteran, leaned back in his chair, arms folded. "Another outsider with no restaurant background," he muttered. Angela's voice was calm but firm. "He has heart, integrity, and vision. That is what we need right now." Philip raised an eyebrow. "We need experience, not charity cases." Jake felt the room tighten. He could feel old loyalty stacked against him. So he spoke. "I understand your concern," Jake said. "I might not come from your world, but I have led through hardship, through loss, through raising a child on pennies. And I am not here to replace anyone. I am here to rebuild. With you. Not above you." The room was silent. Angela nodded. Meeting adjourned. Later that evening, Jake sat alone in his office. The light from the window cast soft shadows across the desk. He reached into his jacket and pulled out Lily's folded note. He opened it slowly. Inside, her handwriting read, "You are braver than yesterday. That is enough for today." Jake smiled. The tiredness faded a little. He placed the note into the drawer and leaned back. The office door creaked. Bruno stood there holding a to-go bag. "Extra plate of roast chicken from the test kitchen," he said gruffly. "Figured you would be too stubborn to eat." Jake accepted it. "Thanks." Bruno paused. Then added, "For what it is worth, you are earning your stripes." Jake nodded. Tomorrow would bring more doubt. More challenges. But for the first time in a long time, he felt like he belonged somewhere again. The following week arrived with a wave of excitement. Angela had announced a community food drive, one that would serve over 300 struggling families across 2 districts. It would be led by Jake. Flyers were printed. Local vendors offered supplies. 3 Marty's Grill locations were selected as distribution points. It was Jake's first real leadership test. He studied every logistics chart, mapped out truck routes, coordinated with volunteers. But he did not expect the storm. The morning of the drive, clouds rolled in like a threat. Heavy and dark. The sky growled with distant thunder. Jake stood outside the central location with a clipboard and headset. Volunteers bustled around him. Pallets of boxed meals were stacked beside the loading dock. Then the first drops fell. followed by chaos. One of the food trucks had taken a wrong turn and crashed into a ditch. Over 100 family meal kits were lost. A second location lost power. No refrigeration. No hot drinks. And the third site? The manager had called out. No one to supervise. Jake gripped the clipboard tighter. His pulse thundered in his ears. Angela was out of town at a board meeting. He was in charge. And everything was unraveling. Jenna approached, panting. Half the crowd's already lined up outside. Some with babies. Some in wheelchairs. We have no way to serve them all, Jake. Not like this. Jake's hand dropped to his pocket. His fingers found the note Lily had written. He did not open it. Just touched it. Then he looked around. Rain poured onto the parking lot. People still stood, umbrellas trembling. Some had none at all. Jake climbed onto the back of the supply truck. Raised his voice. I need every volunteer here, kitchen staff, managers, drivers. We are switching this up. Forget the stations. Forget the zones. We are doing this guerrilla style. People blinked. He pointed. You three go get every tent from storage. Set them up here. Right now. Jenna, call nearby restaurants for backup soup warmers. Tell them we will send gift cards for thanks. He turned to the volunteers. Grab boxes and gloves. We will serve from the parking lot if we have to. No family leaves without food today. I promise you that. Started to move. Like a machine reassembling itself mid-crash. Tents rose. Volunteers passed boxes hand to hand. A staffer rolled out speakers and played soft music. Jake, soaked to the bone, handed out the first meal himself. To an elderly man in a wheelchair wrapped in a plastic poncho. By noon, the entire lot was a living, breathing operation. Kids danced under umbrellas. Families clapped when soup was passed around. Even Bruno showed up, hauling crates of fresh bread from the back of his pickup. Could not stay away, he grunted. Jake grinned. Glad you came. Bruno looked at him. You turned a disaster into a miracle. The rain did not stop. But it did not matter anymore. People were fed. Not just with food, but with dignity. At the end of the day, Jake stood in the center of the parking lot. His clothes stuck to him. Mud stained his shoes. But his eyes sparkled. Angela called that evening. I saw the live stream. People tagged the company. One woman cried while holding a sandwich. Said she had not eaten in 2 days. Jake leaned against the wall. His voice was hoarse. I thought it was going to fall apart. Everything nearly did. Angela paused. Good. That means you were tested. And you passed. You did not panic. You did not hide. You led. Jake closed his eyes. Tired. Grateful. You just made this company more human, she added. And that is worth more than every dollar we gave away today. He hung up and finally opened Lily's second note. Heroes are not always loud. Sometimes they are the ones standing in the rain when no one else will. Jake smiled. This job was no longer just a job. It was a mission. A second chance. And he was all in. Weeks passed. Jake's role expanded quickly. He was no longer the man everyone questioned. He had become the one they turned to. Staff respected him. Communities trusted him. Even Bruno, gruff and guarded, started referring to him as the spine of this place. But then Jake discovered something. Something he was never meant to see. It began with a routine financial review. Angela had asked him to oversee a budget report for a new branch opening. While combing through old invoices and accounts, he noticed a strange pattern. Payments to a supply vendor that no longer existed. Large ones. Recurring. Signed off by someone in accounting. Jake dug deeper. More files. More red flags. He stayed late that night. Alone. Printer humming, spreadsheets open. It was theft. Tens of thousands quietly funneled over months. He leaned back, heart racing. Someone at Marty's Grill had been stealing. From the same brand built on second chances. On community. Jake had two options. Report it and risk damaging the brand. Risk shaking the trust of every store, every family served. Or stay quiet. Protect the image. Stay safe. The next morning, Jake stood outside Angela's office. His hand trembled slightly as he knocked. She looked up from her laptop. Smiled. Morning, Jake. He placed the printed report on her desk. What's this? She asked. Jake met her eyes. And told her everything. He laid out the evidence. The names. The accounts. The risk. Angela said nothing for a long time. Then quietly, I trusted him, she whispered. Her voice shook. It was my father's accountant. The one who helped me start all this. Jake waited. Angela stood. Walked to the window. Rain traced thin lines down the glass. She turned. Eyes calm. We go public, she said. We take responsibility. We fix this. And we thank you. Jake exhaled. That afternoon, Angela held a press conference. She announced the internal theft, the corrections, the transparency measures now in place. She also named the person who found the problem. Jake Daniels. The man who had once brought her to a cheap diner, unaware she owned the entire chain. The media loved it. But more than that, the people did. They saw something rare. A business willing to admit its wounds. And a leader who refused to turn away from truth. Months later, Jake stood at the grand opening of a new Marty's Grill in a once-abandoned neighborhood. Lily stood beside him, holding a bouquet for the ribbon cutting. Angela smiled from the podium. Today we celebrate more than food, she said. We celebrate trust, resilience, and the kind of leadership that does not come from a title, but from heart. She turned to Jake, invited him forward. He stepped up, took the scissors, then paused, looked at the crowd. Families, staff, children dancing to music. He cleared his throat. I was just a dad trying to feed his kid. And one night, I saw a woman in the rain and thought I could help. Turns out she helped me. Laughter. Applause. He cut the ribbon. Flashbulbs popped. Angela leaned in and whispered, You are not just part of this company anymore. You are part of its story. And as the doors opened and the smell of fresh waffles filled the air, Jake knew one thing for sure. That no matter how life began, no matter the stumbles, the quiet efforts, the rainy nights, a single act of kindness could change everything. And sometimes, the table you set for someone else becomes the one that feeds your own future.